I've never seen anything like it, Rich. I've never seen anything quite so biased at the presidential debate level.
Well, it continues a theme of this race, right? They've been completely in the tank for Kamala Harris, and the moderators on the debate stage were completely in the tank for Kamala Harris. And you knew where the night was going when we got the first fact check when Trump was talking about abortion and was talking about, he misspoke in this instance. He got it right later when he said the West Virginia governor, he meant the former Virginia governor, had talked about you can have abortions after birth, right? And he didn't say in any state has abortions after birth. He just said the governor had said this, which is a correct statement. And then he's fact checked by saying, oh, Mr. Trump, there's no state in America that has abortion after 9 months. Actually, there are a few instances in Minnesota. He was correct about that as well. But this is the point. The fact check was incorrect, right? And this is why debate moderators shouldn't fact check. The CNN moderators did not fact check because what you think the fact is in that moment may be subjective, you may be wrong, and you're tilting the playing field. And certainly to fact check one candidate and never fact check the other. She did the Charlottesville lie, the both sides are fine people lie, no fact check. She did the bloodbath lie. He clearly didn't mean that the country is going to be there are going to be riots in the street if he's not elected. It was an economic statement, no fact check. So the moderators were a disgrace. It's one of the reasons Trump seemed on defensive a lot of the night. One was he took a lot of bait from Kamala Harris that he didn't need to. The other was the horrendous moderation.
Agree. He took bait he shouldn't have taken. He was defending himself on the pandemic. He was on his heels instead of going on offense and pivoting off of the bad point for him onto something that was more offensive. That was a tactical error by him. But I do want to just spend a minute on this fact check you just mentioned. Here it is. Here's the moment we're referring to where Lindsey Davis helpfully fact checked Trump on this abortion claim.
They have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Okay, that's not true. And maybe she can use the word kill. It's not like somebody's sticking a knife in the dead baby, in the live baby as it's dying, Emily. But you and I both know that in places like Minnesota and elsewhere, if you are trying to abort a baby in the 9th month or otherwise, and it's born instead of dying in the mother's womb, they will let that baby sit on the table and die. And Trump's claim, though Rich is right, he said at first West Virginia, later he corrected himself to Virginia. Their former governor, Ralph Northam, said this on camera, admitted to this. Here is the soundbite.
Boy, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So
I'll give you one other. Roger Severino, he's with the Heritage Foundation, tweeting out the following. Harris, and as it turns out, Lindsey Davis, is dead wrong. Some babies do survive abortions and can be saved, but are denied life-saving treatment, including under Tim Walz's watch. Harris even voted against the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act that would have defended the lives of these babies, their right to live once born. Unconscionable. Trump didn't say any of that, okay? He tried. But the nerve of this moderator to inject herself into it without any of this.
Here's what I find especially infuriating about that. She editorialized with all of the sanctimony in the world to say that word, to focus in on that word, quote, execute. I don't know if she knows any of the context that you just provided, which is all completely accurate and known to people who follow the news closely, unless you're in a total bubble and aren't doing your job, which is obviously the case here. But she chose to editorialize and say, it's not true. You can't execute. You can't kill babies. I mean, actually, it depends on whether or not you consider having a baby who could be cared for, born alive, and then left without care If you don't consider that an execution, okay. But she is injecting here to quibble editorially, and she doesn't have a leg to stand on this particular issue. There were obvious moments where Kamala Harris could have been fact-checked just as any candidate could. I don't object to them fact-checking Donald Trump. I object to them fact-checking, as Rich said, period. We didn't, after that CNN debate about Biden, talk about the moderators for a lot of reasons, namely because of Biden, but we also really saw them sink into the background of that debate. It was the opposite in this case. They were constantly injecting themselves, constant fact checks. Didn't get a fact check on IVF, Project 2025, as Abigail Schreier pointed out. Nothing on Charlottesville, even when Snopes had fact-checked what Joe Biden was saying about Charlottesville that Kamala Harris repeated. Nothing on abortion, nothing on that bloodbath comment. They just let it all go and just went straight for Trump. It was all him, none her, nothing, not one fact check on Kamala Harris.
But Emily, what you point out gets to the insanity of it. If she was going to be strictly accurate in her fact check, she would have said, well, it's not technically an execution because you're not affirmatively killing the child. Instead, after the child's born, you're just giving the child comfort care and not the medical care that might be necessary to save him or her. That's an opinion, right? That's a debate answer. And so, but instead they do it under the guise of a fact check, which gives it this authority it doesn't deserve, that they're using that by the grace of them sitting there as moderators. It's a total abuse of their role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the same thing on Trump's attempt to claim that when he said on a podcast that he lost the 2020 election by a whisker, I said this on my show today, you guys. I said, if I were asking the questions tonight, I would ask him about that. And about the fact that he said on a podcast last week he lost by a whisker. And you should bring that up. And that's fine to bring that up, which they did. And I was actually surprised by Trump's answer. I was being sarcastic. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know that he was being sarcastic in that answer either. I didn't detect the sarcasm myself. That's not appropriate as a fact check. David Muir, here's the moment.
Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I said that sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it.
All right, we'll recut that with the actual response from David Muir, which was, I didn't detect any sarcasm. That's opinion. That's opinion, Emily. And it is not up to the debate moderator to be saying, I don't quite believe you. That's what he's saying. I didn't believe your answer. Who gives a flying fig what David Muir thinks of Trump's answer?
And that's why these moderators getting into the business of live fact-checking debates is a farce. And in this case, it was so obviously a farce because not once did they attempt to do the same thing to Kamala Harris. And it was interesting because in the first half of the debate, Kamala Harris came out, she seemed maybe a little nervous. Donald Trump seemed like, he thought that she would be easier to debate than she actually was. And, he took the bait a couple of times from her. She baited him into talking about his rallies, when he probably shouldn't have been litigating the size of his rallies. But then as the media fact checks started piling up, and as it became clearer and clearer that the editorial line from ABC News, from the leadership that is very close to Kamala Harris, as you point out, Megyn, they said that there was an editorial firewall in this case, which was obviously not true. That bled all the way down into this debate, and that became increasingly obvious. And that's where Donald Trump picked up steam. He was, he I thought came across as a little overly defensive and angry in the first half of the debate. But as the media performance started to get more and more egregious, he actually really, really did start picking up steam. So even by their own objectives, they're too dumb. They're too dumb to actually fulfill their own their own objectives, which we all know is that they want to destroy Donald Trump, because this ends up helping him when it may not have been a good debate for him, period. Now the big conversation coming out of the Trump camp is going to be an entirely reasonable one about what a joke the media was. So the big loser here, and I mean bigger than Donald Trump in this case, is ABC News. Because now, I think all of the networks, to your point, Megyn, might be losing access to debates from Republicans going forward. They should.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.